the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm good.
It's really interesting to think about this, and I've never heard anybody talk about it before, but let's say that you do work in law enforcement and you come home, and even though your shift was like totally normal, you come home with this sense of an emotional hangover.
You know, as I saw the title of this today, I was thinking about different people's responses towards things. Like, there's been times where, especially like if it's a crazy day, like you feel like you've accomplished so much and you've made an impact, you've done a good job for the day. And then there's those days where you're like, nothing kind of really crazy happened, and you get home and you're like, what did I do today? Because it's not sticking with you as much, so you start feeling that emotion of not accomplishing anything. Well, did I do everything I possibly could? When in all reality, we're being reactive to the situation around us. And so you start feeling less than, or you start feeling like you haven't accomplished much. So you start looking for avenues to where you can accomplish something.
Yeah, and let's say that during your day, nothing major happened. You had no critical incident. There's no obvious trauma. And yet by the time that you're home, your patience is really thin and your energy is gone. I think it's important to break down why routine exposure to stress still takes a toll on you, and why your nervous system doesn't need a crisis in order to be depleted.
And I think that's where, and we've talked about this before, it's being able to shut down your work life and your home life. But in all reality, it takes that emotional toll to where you still have that, you're craving that calm in the chaos. And when you don't have that chaos, you don't feel calm, and you're waiting for the next bad thing to happen all the time.
Yeah, and the psychological concept here is called cumulative stress overload. And this basically happens when small and repeated stressors build up over time without any kind of full discharge. And I think that for first responders, that constant vigilance, that decision-making, the emotional containment, it slowly drained your nervous system, even on the shifts that basically seem uneventful. And
thinking about it, like I can think about different stories I've heard from officers is like when they have those days, and it seems like it's almost more so if they have those work dreams, or that stuff that it's never been completely addressed from those previous incidents, to where on those calm days, you go home, you can't get that full rest. You feel like crap the next day because you didn't rest as fully, even though you should have rested more fully compared to a crazy day.
Yeah, and a lot of times it can look like irritability without a clear cause for it. Or maybe you have super bad mental fog or low motivation. You know, it's your day off and you don't feel like getting up and doing the things that you know you ought to be doing. Even emotional flatness at home, I see that a lot. Sometimes you'll have physical exhaustion that doesn't really fix with rest. And a lot of the times too, you might feel guilty when you're tired, even when nothing happened.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I see is you feel like you didn't accomplish anything, you didn't do anything, but you're still physically and mentally exhausted from not having any of those. I think in my mind, like I'm thinking about this, is you give yourself a reason to why I feel this way, meaning as you had those traumatic experiences, you had those chaotic scenes that you're dealing with, and you come home and you're just tired. You're physically and emotionally tired. When you don't have those and you're still physically and emotionally tired, you don't have an explanation for it.
In my mind right now, I have to say this like an infomercial. Do you feel short-tempered after work? Do you feel mentally checked out at home? Do you need silence before every interaction? There are a lot of signs that you might be experiencing an emotional hangover. And, feeling short-tempered after work, even even slightly, so let's say that a super minor thing set you off, this is great because it's information that you might be experiencing that emotional hangover.
And I think that's the biggest thing is we, in general, as human beings, is we don't take stuff as information and be able to analyze it and address it. Like, I look at it as a case I'm investigating, and you're gathering information, you're developing your case to get it filed off to the courts for that trial, to get the bad guy in jail. When we have information coming in about ourselves, we kind of brush it off and we just keep pushing it off instead of evaluating it and finding the root causes to it.
Last year, I'm thinking about renewing my CCW because it was a time where I felt like I needed to push through instead of being able to recover. And it wasn't about the CCW alone. I was sick. I had so much going on that week that for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I needed to push through instead of recovering. And I think a lot of people experience this too. And it's as though the fatigue just basically doesn't make sense on paper.
Yeah. And I think we don't analyze the recovery process and what takes place with it, because recovery can look like so many different things for different people, and it's finding those times where, okay, this is important to push through and this is important to what I need to do to recover.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, they push through instead of recovering because a lot of the times it doesn't feel like you've earned it.
Yeah, and when you don't feel like you earned it, it goes back to is, what did I accomplish today? I don't feel that self-worth that I typically do when it's go, go, go all the time, and we find busy work that's not really relevant to what we're doing, and it's not sustainable.
Isn't it interesting? Because sometimes during that go, go, go and those high stress days, you feel like you come home and you have the ability to relax and shut down and have everything feel balanced. And a lot of the times it's because we have those endorphins that are hitting off on high, and then we come home and then, we're kind of crashing. So it makes it easier to be able to rest and recover.
And it gives that explanation to ourselves, saying it's okay to feel that way and to do that. And I think that if you don't have those experiences, it's harder to do that because you feel guilty for not accomplishing anything in your mind, but in all reality, you truly did.
Yeah, and we need to, as a society, get better at the fact that we can recover after routine stressors. And so just because things went as planned or things weren't, high impact all day long does not mean that your mind and your body may not have been stressed. So it's important to normalize that stress does not need drama and that your nervous system still worked really hard.
I think kind of the perfect kind of metaphorical understanding of it is when we go out and we're doing police work on a day-to-day basis and crime rates are through the roof but every day we're just out on the streets, we're arresting the bad guys, we're putting them in jail, we're getting the guns off the streets, we're addressing the violent crime. And over time you start seeing that reduce substantially to where you go to work and that stuff is so hard to find because of the impact that you created laying that foundation in the beginning. And you see the crime rates dropping, you see all that stuff going on to where then you're not feeling as useful as you once were when things were in the crazy. But because of that crazy time resulted in the active police work and active everything going on was what set this up for it to be calm before anything else. Yeah,
that's a great point. And yesterday, for example, I was all over the place. I would sit down, do an hour of work, get up, run around the house. I'm getting ready to leave for a conference, packing and, cleaning, washing clothes, doing all kinds of things. And my stomach has been hurting a lot lately. And so I was just very fatigued yesterday. So I gave myself the permission to create these micro decompression moments throughout my day. I told you that my little old man Pomeranian let me kiss him on his naked belly. He never, ever, ever has. There's so many things about him that are changing. And so I, every hour or so, would come and sit down with the dogs and have about 10 minutes of just sitting there with the dogs, not doing anything. And having the ability to give myself permission to have those little 10-minute breaks when I needed them it did a really great job at kind of regulating my nervous system yesterday.
Yeah, and it's good to find those regulatory things that you can do throughout the day, and it's making it okay to have those, because it's not something that you need to do or want to do all the time, but when especially you need to have that recovery process and not having to push yourself through just to get something else done, because I think that's where, if we're always pushing, there's always going to be something else that arises. There's always going to be something more. And it's important to have that balance of saying it's okay to sit down for 20 minutes and reward yourself with just that decompression phase.
Yeah, and to know and understand that normal shifts can still leave you feeling drained. And it's important for you to be able to just validate your own experience and know that there are very practical ways to recover before that stress is going to silently compound. I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.